Hello, brothers and sisters. I've probably spent the better part of the last 2 days looking into augmented reality, CERN technology. I guess I got a couple of what's it called, the chemtrail videos in here, and none of those really got me. It was more of the CERN technology and the portals, as well as the augmented reality that we're now facing. So I was at a real estate conference, and it was 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and they were talking about augmented reality. And there were a handful of things that they said, but there were probably about 5 things I took away from it. For one, there's a credit score that we don't know about, and it's not TransUnion or anything else that determines our credit worthiness, and that's been in place for almost 20 years. Then there's a browser tracking history that goes back to 1999. So everything you've done on the internet since 1999 is public. And then there's 16,000 cryptocurrencies. What are some of the other ones? They have robots that are learning how to flip and do all that crazy stuff. And needless to say, there's a bunch of people who think that giving robots these abilities to understand things is a great idea. And having dealt with AI myself, I just kind of laugh. I can give a system inputs, but I don't know how it thinks through things, right? So the problem with artificial intelligence is that artificial intelligence is fake news, right? But you can tell a system something, but you can't necessarily get out of the system how they came to a conclusion. So you can program an AI to basically give you whatever you want, and it'll digest the variables and give you the optimal conclusion, but it won't tell you how it got there. So, needless to say, if you think through artificial systems and you think through all the various iterations you can do, the thing that I find scary about everything that I've been watching, if you're opening a portal to another world, or you're opening yourself to a digitized program, you basically have to trust the program. And honestly, I don't trust a programmer with my life. So, needless to say, you can go wherever you want, but the problem is the program will always find a way. And that's where Ian Malcolm from Jurassic Park really makes his best forte is that chaos theory always happens, right? You have human nature, and by human nature it creates chaos. But the problem is what if you create a digitized universe where you don't have chaos? What you'll end up doing is creating a control grid where basically you have an authoritarian in power who may or may not be a good person. And ironically, the more you go into the ideas behind all this stuff, that's where you have to go. Is who's going to be in control at the end. Me, I have no interest in being around a control grid. Honestly, these computing systems are cool for what they bring, but they're not necessarily the best things in the world. I'd rather have a old school phone line where if people knew me, they could call me, and if they don't have my number. But you see, we're beyond that. And unfortunately, with the control grid, you have to think about it from a higher level systems, right? Let's just say you unplug the matrix where you're stuck in a control grid with a bunch of spiritual beings you don't have control over and who can think and do things above and beyond your control. What do? You're not going to be smarter than them. They'll take control. It's the same thing as the Terminator, except it might be a lot worse. And having experienced several dreams where I've been thrown into control systems where I didn't have control. I think the first one was I was pulled into a temple of Diana, which pretty much resembled the Masonic church in D.C., or the Masonic temple in D.C. And when I walked into it, I knew it was a horrible display. But they kept trying to bring me closer and closer to the center of the temple, and eventually I just said, forget this, I'm out. Then I had another dream the same night. It was one of those nights where I thought I slept for like 45, 60, 70 hours. It was one of those nights, and it was really only 4. So the next dream, I was basically brought into what I would call a version of stranger dreams, where I saw these large objects walking around, big towers, kind of like being in downtown Seattle. But instead of just being in Seattle, you had these big monstrosities rocking around, and there was a little wheel that came around by me, and it was just an autonomous wheel. And the wheel had a face, and the face would sit back and talk to me. And the first thing he said was, "You're a righteous person, what the fuck are you doing here?" I said, "I don't know. What am I doing here?" And he just started showing me the city. And then I ended up in somebody's tavern where it looked like basically a deep-robed individual crying and trying to plead with me. And I just said, "Get me out of here. I have no idea what I'm doing. Don't want to be here." And then the third dream on that night is I walked into basically a place where there were a bunch of souls and people trapped into basically a big circular grid. And it was kind of like the Devil's Apocalypse, where you're in that final scene with Al Pacino, and you see all these souls frozen like concrete into this massive circle. And I just looked at it like, really? And there was nothing I could do to basically chip away. So obviously I was trying to chip away at this big circle, but it wasn't going anywhere. But needless to say, these are bizarre prophetical dreams. I don't know why I'm going into this with artificial intelligence, but needless to say, if you don't trust your own judgment, you're going to be relying on somebody else's. Rely on Christ. If you don't rely on Christ, the road to damnation is pretty simple. So, God bless you.